Hello and welcome to Para Norleans, the Paranormal New Orleans podcast that tells stories of the creepy, otherworldly, unknown, and unexplained from the New Orleans and surrounding areas and across Louisiana and beyond. This is episode 4, Our Happy Home. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thomas and Brenda, newlyweds from Lafayette, Louisiana. They've purchased their first home on 5 acres of land. A wonderful place for them to begin a new life together, raise a family eventually, and just enjoy their lives as a couple. The home was beautiful. It sat in the middle of the property, so you had to drive a little ways down to get to it. It was surrounded by trees, something that Brenda absolutely wanted. She had a green thumb and could not wait to plant her garden, grow her own fruits and vegetables, and spend time showing her children how to do the same. Thomas was a very hardworking man. He owned a contracting business, and in fact, he had purchased the home for the two of them and lovingly repaired it with his own hands. So, this home was extra special to the both of them. Thomas gave it to his new bride as a gift, a surprise that she was not expecting, a surprise that she greatly appreciated, and it made her love Thomas even more. Even though he worked a great deal, sometimes very early in the morning and even into the late hours of the night, Brenda wanted to make sure that she had a peaceful place prepared for him to return to after a hard day of work. The home allowed her to have her own space for her business and keep it separate from their living quarters. So it created a space of not just productivity, but also peace for the both of them. Moving in went very, very smoothly. Thomas and Brenda worked together to decorate, get everything in order, just how they wanted it, just how they viewed it in their mind. They wanted the home to reflect who they were, not only as individuals, but also as a couple. And they achieved it perfectly. Everyone talked about how wonderful Thomas and Brenda were together. Their families were so happy, and everyone couldn't wait until they started a family of their own. Things were good in the beginning. The first year was complete bliss, and it passed so quickly. They were taking out that frozen topper from their wedding cake before they knew it. Brenda never spoke on the early mornings or the late nights or the business trips. She didn't mind at first, but after a year, the conversation about children started coming up more and more. Not that it caused any tension between the two of them, but you could sense there was a little something brewing underneath the surface between the two of them. Thomas was committed to making sure he had things just so for the two of them. He wanted to make sure that they were financially stable for the future so that they didn't have anything to worry about. He constantly reassured Brenda that things would be just fine. Just let me work, is what he would tell her. Just let me work. And I promise you, everything is going to be just fine. And again, Brenda accepted this. And another year passed, and another year. And the long mornings and late nights continued. The house was beginning to feel very empty. But Brenda tended her garden. She grew her vegetables, some fruits, just as she had always wanted. And between that and her business, she stayed fairly busy herself. There was nothing on the outside that would indicate there was any trouble or strife between the two of them. But Brenda was starting to feel something strange towards her husband, and she kept it to herself, thinking that they were still fairly newlyweds, still trying to find their groove together. But she was getting tired of having dinner all by herself 6 nights out of the week. Again, she didn't want to trouble Thomas too much with her concerns for their marriage, but it lingered on her heart quite a bit. And then the dreams started. And Brenda was a woman of sound mind. She'd never had any emotional problems or emotional issues. She came from a stable home. So the dreams, she believed, were just the underlying tensions that she was feeling in her marriage, things that she didn't express. The dreams were always the same. A faceless woman running in slow motion around the house. The dreams were always silent, but Brenda could see herself on the side, watching the frantic, faceless woman run around the house, trying to find something, perhaps, or maybe escape. She always woke up just as the woman was running towards her. She didn't know why, and well, she didn't spend much time trying to figure it out. All she wanted to do was throw herself into cultivating her garden, put herself into her work, and enjoy the time that she did spend with Thomas. Time which seemed to be ever decreasing as the weeks passed. Year 5 of their marriage saw Thomas taking more and more trips out of town. So Brenda, spending time alone, beginning to feel isolated. The dreams no longer just stayed in her mind at night. They were starting to become waking dreams. She would find herself standing at the counter or sitting at her desk or taking a shower, and she would drift off and have visions of that faceless woman scrambling around the house, trying to find an exit, perhaps. And she always had on the same clothes in the dream: purple shirt, black pants, hair down, wet, but no face, no voice, no cries, no screams, nothing in the dream to indicate who this woman was or what her purpose was. But those waking dreams began to turn into a frightening reality for Brenda. One Saturday morning, she was making herself breakfast in the kitchen, and she was having one of those moments where she was just drifting off, staring out of the patio door, looking into the yard, the beautiful garden she'd planted. And there was that woman, that faceless woman, except this time she was completely dripping wet. It wasn't just her hair, she was soaking wet, but she still had no face. And Brenda watched as the woman began walking towards the patio door, and they stared at each other, if it's possible to stare without having a face. And Brenda watched as the woman put both of her hands up on the door. This time, though, Brenda could hear a whispering, a whispering, a whispering, a whisper, 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 whisper. Soft words that she could not decipher what they were. And she strained her ears to hear, but still just a whisper that she could not understand. And she found herself blinking back into reality. And the woman was gone. Now, Brenda would have just completely chalked it up to just the stress of her situation and being concerned about her marriage and really not having anyone to talk to except for the fact that there were 2 damp handprints on the outside of the patio door. She slid her pan of eggs off the fire, and she wandered over to the door just to make sure she was really seeing what she was seeing. And she put her hand up to the glass. And yes, it was very real. Those handprints were actually there. And she took a step back and shook her head and began to wonder if this was taking more of a toll on her than she realized. She told herself maybe she should see someone, a psychiatrist, maybe get on some medication. She was spending way too much time alone in this home, separated from friends and family. She didn't even realize until that moment just how lonely she really was. She decided to pick up the phone to call Thomas, just to hear his voice, just to get this strange encounter out of her mind. But those handprints were very real. Of course, she called and Thomas didn't answer, but he immediately sent her a text saying that he was on a job site and that he would call her when he got to his truck. A response that had become very common. She finished up with her breakfast, sat down at the table by herself once again, and tried to figure out what she could do to help herself get out of this funk. Her marriage wasn't at all what she imagined, but what action could she take to change it or improve it? She went back to work herself, beginning to work late into the night just to fill the space that was left by her absent husband. One night, after logging out at about 11 p.m., she decided she would go and take a shower and hope that Thomas would be in before 2 o'clock in the morning this time. As she made her way to her bedroom, she stepped in something wet, cold, a puddle. Her first instinct was to look up into the ceiling to make sure there was nothing leaking. And then she looked back down and she noticed there were puddles leading up the hallway to her bedroom. 2 by 2 puddles, feet, someone walking in her house, obviously wet. And immediately she panicked and thought, I need to call the police. She reached in her pocket to grab her phone, and before she could dial the first number, she heard cries, low, muffled cries coming from the master bedroom. And she immediately thought of the faceless woman. Maybe it wasn't just a waking dream after all. Brenda crept slowly, avoiding the puddles. She delicately pushed her bedroom door open, and she could still hear the cries, still muffled, but they were coming from the bathroom. She walked slowly, not wanting to scare whoever it was, just in case this person had gotten into her home and they were in distress. Brenda did not want to put herself in a bad situation, but she was curious. She needed to know if this was the faceless woman that had been showing up in her dreams and who left the handprints on her patio door. She crept to her bathroom, and on the edge of her tub was that woman in the purple shirt and black pants. Her head was down. Her back was to Brenda. The water was filling up in the tub. And Brenda suddenly got a chill that ran through her entire body from the top of her head into her feet. And as much as her mind was telling her to turn around and run and call the police, she kept moving forward, stretching out her arm to touch the woman on her shoulder. And just as Brenda got to this woman, she turned, still faceless, still nothing to let Brenda know who this woman was. And she heard the voice say to her, "You're next." And with those words, Brenda popped her eyes open, not realizing that she was in the tub. How did she get in the tub? When did she get in? When did she get in the tub? What is happening? What is happening? I don't understand. I don't understand what. Not knowing what else to do, she turned off the running water, grabbed a towel, and started to dry herself off. I really need to get myself some help, Brenda thought. She walked into her bedroom and saw her husband sleeping in the bed. When did he come home, and where was I when he entered? I don't understand what is happening. And she told herself, "You are spending entirely too much time alone." She dried off. put on her pajamas and climbed into bed, confused, but determined to figure out what was happening to her and who this woman was. She didn't have any evidence of what had happened. She didn't have any evidence proving that someone had been there, that she had actually seen something, that she had actually had some type of experience. So who was she going to tell, and who was going to believe her? Crazy. Crazy. That's it. She was going crazy. She was losing her mind. She was losing her mind. I'll get myself some help. This is becoming too much. I have to get myself some help. Her husband, she tried to talk to Thomas the next morning, explain to him that she was feeling all of these things and having all of these experiences, and he didn't want to hear anything that she had to say. He brushed her off completely, just completely ignored what she said, and I have to get to work was all he said to her. Somebody has to take care of this house. And Brenda, all she could do was cry because she didn't understand what was happening to her, what was happening to her marriage. So she goes through another day, another week, another month of just nothingness and loneliness and trying to connect with her husband. Their dinners had just become the two of them hunched over their plates, eating and not interacting at all. This wasn't what I expected my life to be. Again, she finds herself having more intense dreams about the faceless woman. She starts waking up in random places in her house. This is getting far too intense. She tells herself, far too intense. I don't know what to do. And she tries again to talk to her husband, but to no avail. Brenda decides one day that she is going to make sure that her and Thomas get on the same page. We have to get on the same page. And she cooks an elaborate dinner, all of his favorite foods. She lights a candle. She sends him pictures and videos and tells him, come home early tonight and let's reconnect. And as she's sitting at the table waiting for him to come home, she hears a splashing in the bathroom of the master bedroom. And she checks her surroundings to make sure that she is awake and aware. She goes creeping up the hallway because this time I'm going to catch whoever this is. She creeps up the hallway, pushes her bedroom door open, and she can still hear the splashing. She eases her way towards the bathroom, and she creeps in and she sees the woman sitting in the tub wearing the same purple shirt and black pants she's always wearing. But instead of approaching her, Brenda asks, "Who are you and what are you doing in my home?" And the faceless woman turns to her, except this time she has a face. And this time Brenda can clearly see who it is. It's her. And the woman smiles. And Brenda steps back and shakes her head, and she looks down at herself. She's wearing a purple shirt and black pants. Her hair is damp. And she looks back at the woman sitting in the tub, the woman that is looking like Brenda. Is it me? And she runs out of the bathroom and into her living room, and she's looking around and she sees Thomas sitting at the table. Oh my God, Thomas, you're here. Thank God, Thomas, you're here. Oh my God, I don't know what's happening to me. And she goes over to Thomas and grabs Thomas's shoulder, and his head falls back onto her arm. Thomas's throat had been slit. He was, quite obviously, dead. Brenda screams, steps back, and realizes she is covered in blood. And she's running. She starts running from room to room, running all over the house frantically, just like the faceless woman in the dream. And she runs back to the bathroom and realizes the tub is full of blood. Brenda had finally broken from all of the lonely nights, all of the lonely days. Thomas finding work more important than spending time with his wife. Brenda finally cracked. This is another cautionary tale. Pay attention to your relationships, your marriage. Don't allow yourself to get lonely or have too much time on your hands, because things might not end well for you. This has been Fat Girl Freestyle with Para Norleans. I hope you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, Fat Girl Freestyle channel, where I share more spooky, creepy, and true content for your listening pleasure. So please head on over to YouTube, look up the Fat Girl Freestyle channel, and hit subscribe. And as always, I appreciate you for listening and supporting Para Norleans.